Hey everyone, my name is Anchor and thank you for joining me once again on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Sony A7C. Now this compact camera right here is so tiny and I absolutely fell in love with it. As a professional wedding photographer, I'm used to the larger format cameras. You know, when I used to use DSLRs, I was used to the Canon 5D series. And when I switched over to Sony mirrorless, I went with the A7 III or the A9s. And for video, the A7S III and the Sony FX3. Now, these are much larger cameras, even though they are still pretty small. But I wanted something even tinier, something more compact and mobile, something for personal use that wasn't as big and bulky as the A9 or the A7 III. So I've been looking at this baby for a while, and I hesitated for a while because it was so small and there was a couple of cons that really drew me away from the A7C. But the more and more I looked at it and the more and more research I did, I actually found that this compact camera was actually a powerhouse. So in this video, I'm actually going to take you through some of the pros and the cons of the A7C and my personal opinion on why I think it's a good camera for both professional and personal use. Stay tuned. Alright, so let's talk about advantage number one. If you remember the A6400, the A6500, etc., the A6000 series pretty much share the exact same form factor as this, except they were crop sensor. Now this is basically the same size as a crop sensor camera with the advantage of a full frame sensor inside. Now that is truly amazing. You get full frame power in a compact size. Advantage number two. Now the weight and the portability of this camera is absolutely amazing. First of all, the A7C only weighs 1.1 pounds. If you compare that to the very popular A7 III, it is 1.43 pounds, and the A9, which is 1.5 pounds. What this means is you can literally pick this up and pack it in your purse, your handbag, your knapsack, even your pocket with the right lens. You can pack it up and go. And you're ready to shoot, whether for professional or personal use. You're ready to go at any time. The weight's not weighing you down, no pun intended. Advantage number three, the contours. Now the contours of this, it's a little bit squarish, but it has very clean corners and cuts. Now what that means is you don't have any humps or bumps that are going to get in the way of when you're packing it. When you pack it away in your bag or your pocket, it just slips right in. You don't have the standard eyepiece on top of the camera, such as with the A7 series or the A9 series, for example, which makes it a little bit difficult to pack in bags or your pocket or whatever the case may be. Instead, you have a tiny viewfinder, which I'll talk about separately, but it is very clean, very rectangular and boxy. And while some people might not like that, it really makes for a great fit when you're packing it away. Advantage number four. You can record up to 4K 30 frames per second or 120 frames per second in 1080p. Now I know some people will say, well, it's not 4K 60, but you know what? The A7S III, for example, costs double, triple as much as the A7C, and it will give you the ability to do that. But for most people, whether professional or personal use, 4K 30 and 120 frames per second in 1080p is plenty enough power to be able to record for personal or professional use. Advantage number five, real-time autofocus tracking to detect animals or humans with fantastic face or eye tracking, and this is quick and precise, and I have not had any issues with the tracking at all in terms of autofocus. Advantage number six, the A7C has a whopping 10 frames per second shooting. Now, I have the Sony A9, which I like to use because of the 20 frames per shooting in silent shutter mode. This allows me at weddings to be very inconspicuous and catch multiple frames very quickly to make sure I don't miss a shot or if I'm shooting for personal use such as birding, I get every single shot of the bird in the sky or with something in its talons or claws or its beak, and 20 frames per second is great. So I always thought that 10 frames per second simply wouldn't be good enough. But when I got the A7C and I tried it out, it was plenty fast. So again, that's another advantage. 10 frames per second, it is blazing fast, and I'm sure it's going to work for you too. And advantage number 7, it's got 693 phase detection autofocus points, as well as 425 contrast detection autofocus points. This has a wide coverage area to make sure that the autofocus is snippy and you never miss the shot. And advantage number 8, and this is one of the big ones for me, I absolutely love the rotating LCD screen. I didn't really use rotating LCD screens until I moved to the A7S III for video, which I thought was great. And now with the A7C, I love the ability to shoot vertical portrait photos, and I can use the LCD to position it at an angle that I would never think possible to be able to view the photo that I'm taking. It really is hard to describe, but once you have the A7C in your hand, it is so easy to use. For example, if I'm shooting vertically, I can simply go like this and shoot vertically and see my shot. And that is really, really great, because typically with an LCD that only tilts, it was very difficult to get the shots that I wanted in some situations. So I absolutely love the rotating screen, especially if I'm blogging or vlogging, whatever the case may be. I have it on a gimbal. I can actually point it towards myself and see what I'm recording without the use of an external field monitor. All right, now let's get to the disadvantages, or the things that maybe they could have done better at Sony. The Sony A7 III only has one card slot. Now a lot of people might be annoyed by this. Me, I'm not so personally annoyed. I love the fact that on the A9, A7 III, etc., I had the ability to use 2 memory cards in the same body. This offered some level of redundancy, back-to-back recording, relay, simultaneous recording. That gave me peace of mind that no matter what, I would not lose my photos. But with the A7C, I only have one card slot. But what can you do? If you're shooting with 2 bodies, then you still have the redundancy of having 2 separate A7Cs or 2 bodies, both with at least one card slot. Gives you a little bit of peace of mind, but I guess they could have done that better. They could have had 2 card slots, but then again, think about it. The form factor would not be the same, and the price would be higher. So for the price that you pay, I still think this is a fantastic deal, even though it has only one card slot. Great for personal use, great for professional use as well. You just have to consider the fact that you might have to have some form of redundancy in place if you're worried about losing your photos or some critical errors happening with your memory cards. Disadvantage or con number 2. The EVF or the viewfinder is completely useless on this. If you still use the viewfinders, I found they were personally easier to use on the larger full-frame bodies such as the A9 or the A7 III. However, when they built this A7C, you can see the viewfinder is right here, and it is tiny. I'm not sure why they even bothered to include it in the first place, but if you do still use it, it is small and it's hidden off in the corner, which makes it a little bit awkward when you're using this camera. Disadvantage or con number 3, the lack of custom function buttons. Now, on the larger full-frame bodies, you have many options when it comes to custom buttons, so you can program them to different functions and features that you might find useful. On the A7 III, I can only count 1. And you might be able to reprogram some of the other buttons, but you lack some of the other custom function buttons that you would have more of on the larger bodies. Personally, I haven't had much trouble because I can easily use the function button and program everything along the menu of the function button to have quick access to features that I would typically use. So while I might not have the custom function buttons to just press and select what I need from an option, I still have the function button that's there, and I can program the menu to show what I need quick access to. So not much of a disadvantage, but for those who really love having custom function buttons right there and then, you might not like that. Now, disadvantage number 4, because it is a smaller full frame camera and they packed many features into the small body, the grip is a little bit lacking. You literally have to curl your fingers around the grip and hold on to it tight, because it's not as deep as the other cameras that I've referred to in this video. Does it really bother me? No, because if I have a wrist strap attached, or I have this, I'm holding it tight, it doesn't really make a difference. But for some with larger hands, for example, I could see this being a problem. There are products available on Amazon, for example, that extend the grip to be a little bit larger and cushionier, if that's even a word. Or you can buy a frame for the camera, or even an L bracket, which might help in terms of grip and grasp. But it is a very shallow grip, so you should be aware of that. My final thoughts for this camera: I absolutely love the A7C. It's really, really powerful in such a small, compact body. I had always been looking for a small, compact body, and even considered the A6600 or the A6400 in the past, but I didn't want crop sensor. But when the A7C came out, I waited and I waited, and I finally took the plunge, because this is a full frame sensor in a crop sensor body, and I absolutely love it. It has a lot of power and features for what it packs into the price, without me having to carry around some of the larger cameras like the A9, A7S III, FX3, or the A7 III. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate that you took the time to see my review on the A7C. Now, if you have enjoyed it, or it's helped you in making your purchasing decision, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like this video, click the thumbs up, and subscribe, so that I can continue to bring future content to you on gear, tips and tricks, and wedding photography. All topics that I love talking about and sharing with you around the world. Until next time, keep shooting, have fun, and keep practicing. Bye for now.